Happy Saturday, Mount Olive. Good to see everybody today. Hope you're having a great Saturday. It's a beautiful day outside. I'm sure everybody has big plans for the weekend, enjoying some time with your family. So, we're going to go ahead and get into the devotion today, wrapping up this week's devotion, which has been the miracles of Jesus. And so, some really good, well recognized miracles in scriptures this week that the guys have gone over. And we're going to continue that today as we wrap up our weekly devotion on the miracles of Jesus. So, hope everybody's had a great week. As you can see, I'm at Little Stony Falls today. So, lots of beautiful things in our area, and I like to display them here as my background. But that's Little Stony Falls for those of you who are curious about what I'm showing today. So, going to go ahead and get started on the devotion. And today we are going to be in Matthew, and we're going to be in chapter 14, looking at verses 23 through 33. And the miracle today that we're talking about is another well known miracle that happened actually right after the miracle that John had gone over yesterday in his devotion. And this is when Jesus walks on the water, um, and Peter as well. So let's go ahead and get into the scriptures. We'll pull out a few things, and hopefully we take away something today that we can find as beneficial for us. So let's read through these scriptures. Matthew 14, starting in verse 23. It says, "And when he had sent the multitudes away," again, this is after Jesus had fed the 5,000 or the nearly 20,000, as John covered in his devotion yesterday. When he had sent the multitudes away, he went up into a mountain apart to pray. And when the evening was come, he was there alone. But the ship was now in the midst of the sea, tossed with waves, for the wind was contrary. So, one thing that we can go ahead and pull out here is that we are in a storm of some sort always. We're always going to be in some sort of a storm. And just as we see here, he talks about the ship was in the midst of the sea. We can relate to that, knowing that in our lives, especially in 2020, we find ourselves in quite the storm going on around us. Verse 25 says, "And in the fourth watch of the night, Jesus went unto them walking on the sea." So the devotional for today said that Jesus did something unimaginable. Something unimaginable. Now, to me, I see two things. One is that obviously something unimaginable is the fact that Jesus went into them walking on the sea. We know that it's not physically possible to walk on top of the water unless by some power that only Jesus can provide. And so the first thing unimaginable is walking on the water. The second thing is the fact that Jesus would come and meet us where we are no matter what is going on. If we can just pause for a second and think about that knowing that the millions and billions of people that are on this earth, and that they all have so many things going on in their lives, and the fact that the creator of the universe will stop what amongst everything else, among all of the other noise, and come to us and meet us where we are. That is something else that to me is unimaginable. It's hard to fathom that Jesus does that for us, but that's exactly what he does for us as believers. For non-believers, when we call out to him, he hears us, and he is ready to listen and ready to meet us right where we are, no matter what storm is going on in our lives or what noise is happening all around us. And in this situation, they find themselves in an actual storm on the sea. So verse 26 says, "And when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were troubled, saying, 'It is a spirit,' and they cried out for fear." So what we're seeing here is that they find themselves afraid because of what they see. They don't think about Jesus at first. They don't think about it being Jesus. They think, "Oh, this is a ghost or whatever it is." We're afraid of it, right? But something that we can call out here is that sometimes it's hard for us to see Jesus through the distractions of our situation. And so the disciples' fear here, it clouded their focus on Jesus. And I think for us, we have to think, well, is this global pandemic that we find ourselves in, is that clouding our focus? Is the fear that we are facing taking a precedence and becoming the focus of our attention versus Jesus? So we can compare those two. The disciples here let fear get in the way of being able to focus on Jesus and see Jesus. And so I think it's very easy for us to find ourselves in that same situation where we let fear get in the way and we start to focus on the other things that are causing that fear and not being able to clearly see Jesus or look to Jesus as we should. It's important that we can realize that and know the importance of being able to focus on Jesus. And as we keep going here, verse 27, but straightway Jesus spake unto them, saying, Be of good cheer, it is I, be not afraid. And Peter answered him and said, Lord, if it be thou, bid me come out of the ship. And he walked on the water to go to Jesus. And so the next one is verse 29. He said, Come. And when Peter was come down out of the ship, he walked on the water to go to Jesus. So when, we're talking about fears and other things taking our focus, but in the opposite of that, when we put our focus on Jesus and we keep our focus on Jesus, we can do what we would consider the unimaginable, right? We can have the confidence to take that step, that next step that Jesus is calling us to take. We can overcome our fear and move in a direction maybe that we've been afraid to move in before. And all of a sudden we have the courage to do that through the power of Jesus. And so whatever it is that you feel like God has been calling you to do, and maybe you're using fear around you and the pandemic around you and all the unusual circumstances of 2020 around you, you're using those as an excuse to not do something that God has been urging you to do, that you feel like Jesus is calling you to do. When we can put our focus on Him, we can do that. We can have the strength and the courage to take that step. And we see here that's exactly what Peter did, because at the moment, in the midst of everything else that was going on around him, he only focused on Jesus. And in through that, he was able to take that step out onto the water and do something that we would all we would consider to be unimaginable or unthinkable or undoable. So let's look on. Verse 30 said, But when he saw the wind boisterous, didn't last long, did it? So when we saw the wind boisterous, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried, saying, Lord, save me. So Peter took his eyes off of Jesus just for a second and was distracted by the storm again that was going on around him. And I know this is unusual, but this is what I thought about when, I think that Peter just simply turned his head and took his eyes off of Jesus just for a second, just for a few seconds, and started to then all of a sudden be distracted by the storm again and the winds, and that fear started to creep back in. And I know this is odd, but you think about, what you hear about texting and driving, right? If we use that as a real life example, it only takes a few seconds to really lose focus, take your eyes off the road, and find yourself in a very dangerous situation. One of the facts that I looked up about texting and driving is that if you're driving down the road at 55 miles an hour, and then you take your eyes off the road for 5 seconds, which is a very, very minuscule amount of time, just a fraction of time. In that amount of time, you can go 100 yards, which is a football field, and you can imagine you could really find yourself in some danger in that 5 seconds by taking your eyes off the road. That's exactly what happens when we take our eyes off of Jesus just for a short amount of time. It doesn't seem like long. Maybe a few seconds doesn't seem like long to glance down at your phone, but you look up and you're somewhere where you didn't think you would be. The same thing when we take our eyes off Jesus. We can find ourselves drifting away into a situation that can be very dangerous to us, very compromising to us. And so it's extremely important that we keep our eyes on Jesus all the time. So let's keep going. Verse 31, we'll read the last few verses here. And immediately Jesus stretched forth his hand and caught him and said unto him, O thou of little faith, wherefore didst thou doubt? Why did you doubt? And when they were come to the ship, the wind ceased. Then they that were in the ship came and worshipped him, saying, Of a truth, thou art the Son of God. And so, today I want to read a little bit of what was in the devotion here. If I can just pull that up real quick. But I thought it said it really well. And just one second, let me find it. Um, get back to it. Yeah, so right here, it says, It's been said that too often we glance at Jesus and gaze at our problems when we should be doing the exact opposite. Gaze at Jesus. Now, to gaze means to just be staring, to be focused, that's got your full attention. Gaze at Jesus and glance at our problems. It feels easier to focus on what's going wrong, doesn't it? But fixing our eyes on Jesus will bring a calmness to our souls, even when trouble looms around us. The question we all need to ask is, where are my eyes fixed? So I hope you get a little something out of that today. Remember, keep your eyes fixed on Jesus. When you glance away, even for what seems to be a short amount of time, you can find yourself in a situation that can be dangerous, can be compromising, and be a place where you don't need to be or want to be. So let's all keep our eyes fixed on Jesus today. I hope you guys have a great rest of the day. I hope that you will join us for church tomorrow at Mount Olive at 11. Looking forward to service tomorrow. Hope everybody has an awesome and safe rest of your weekend, and we'll see you soon.